Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Committee. The first item on the agenda, first of all, may I introduce Mr. John Bryant and Mr. Gary Newman, who are the licensing officers, along with, there we are, along with Yvonne Leddy, who's sitting down there with one of our speakers. To my left is Mr. Paul Vickers and Mr. Tom Clark, both from our legal department. My name is John DeBell, and this is Gary Marsh. You're my deputy chairman. Thank you very much indeed. First item on the agenda. The members are all sitting in front of me, and we won't run through all of those. I think we'll be here all day. First item on the agenda is to receive apologies, and so far we have apologies from Councillors Allen, Councillor Forbes, Councillor Mrs. Mockford, and Councillor Mrs. Smith. We also have apologies from Councillor Knight. They are all either on holiday or doing something much more interesting. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matters on the agenda. Do we have any matters? No, absolutely no interest whatsoever. And so we'll move straight on to confirm the minutes of two previous meetings, one on the 8th of February and the other on the 11th of May. Does any committee member have anything they'd like to raise on any of those, any problems or anything like that? I see nothing, and therefore those minutes can be signed and confirmed. Oh, sorry, we have to go to the vote. Can we have votes on the first one first, please? I do apologise. I'm having to be reprogrammed on a lot of this. Councillor Laban.
Chairman, can I make it clear what we're voting on?
We're voting on the minutes, the 2 minutes. So we're going to vote on each one, if that's okay. Is that okay? Roger. So we're voting on the minutes of the meeting on the 8th of February first. So far we have 8 in favour and 1 against. Is that correct?
9. I wasn't here. I thought I pressed the yellow one. You have.
You have indeed.
Thank you.
Mea culpa, sorry.
Yellow, it looks sort of like a green.
Okay, so because of course you weren't there, I understand that. So that's 9, and that is carried. And then we're going to vote on number 2, which is the meeting for the 11th of May, Wednesday 11th of May. And this time we have a full house. Thank you very much indeed.
So the results. So the voting results 82% in favour, 1 abstention. So
Okay, thank you. To consider any items is item 4. To consider any items that the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. We have none. And therefore we move on to item 5, which is a request for an increase in hackney carriage fares for 2022. Now, you will remember that at our last licensing committee, we said that we would hold this in abeyance for 6 months, but little did we know the way that fuel prices were going to go, and therefore we have agreed to bring this forward so that we can actually get something moving on this one. And I'm sure you would agree with me that that is the right thing to do. So without further ado, we'll move to item 5, which is the request for an increase in hackney carriage fares. And today, our licensing officer, who will outline the report to us, is Mr. Gary Newman, and I will hand over to him to do his report.
Thank you. The purpose of the report is for the Licence Committee to consider an application from a section of the taxi trade requesting an increase in hackney carriage fares. The members are recommended to consider the request to either agree with the submitted proposal and amend and increase the tariff by the requested amounts from the 1st of September 2022, or consider an alternative increase to the existing free tariffs, or consider no increase to the tariff. The fares charged by hackney carriage are set and regulated by the Council. In February 2022, the Licence Committee heard a proposal to increase the hackney tariff submitted by station taxis who had conducted an initial petition of interested parties within the taxi trade. There has been a general increase in the cost of living, fuel costs and maintenance costs over the past 3 years. At the time, the committee decided that the proposal should be deferred and reconsidered in 6 months' time. Ordinarily, the Mid-Sussex Taxi Association are the recognised channel of communications for such a fare increase. However, the association has not been active since 2018. Since February 2022, the taxi trade have experienced additional costs which they feel has impacted them. These include introduction of statutory standards, the rollout of mandatory training, the planned introduction of CCTV in vehicles, future loss of income due to the effects of the pandemic and the increase of fuel prices, and the general rise in the cost of living. A new proposal has been submitted by Mr. Andy Harding, which you can see in Appendix 1. He proposes the following: to keep the tariff system as we know it, as free tariffs, with hiring times and bank holidays as they are. A straight increase of 40%, making Tariff 1 start-up of £3.60, Tariff 2 £5.40, Tariff 3 £7.20. A reduction in yardage for the next 140 metres to 130 metres, keeping the waiting time and cost the same at 20, 30 and 40 pence respectively. An increase on when the pump prices during periods reach A, £1.90 to £2.24. This is an increase from 20p to 50p. B, £2.25 to £2.49. This is an increase from 40p to 90p. And C, £2.50 per litre, an increase from 60p to £1.10. Tariff cars need updating to cover congestion and pollution charges and airport drop-off charges. And a soiling charge needs to be increased. This is currently £40 and the suggested increase is to £150. The current soiling charge has been the same for many years and hasn't changed. And obviously the cleaning of a vehicle, the cost of cleaning a vehicle has increased. And also you have to consider the loss of earnings that the vehicle is off the road for as well. There have been a collection of 70 signatures from drivers in favour of this proposal, which is Appendix 2. Our current fares are contained in the tariff card in Appendix 3, with the proposed fare increase detailed in Appendix 4. There is a comparison of the fares contained in Appendix 5. The Council has the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976 provides the power and the mechanism for the local authority to set fares for hackney carriages. And that's my report.
Thank you very much indeed. Before I open it up to the committee, we have two speakers. We have Mr. Mark Humphreys and Mr. Andrew Harding, both holders, for a number of taxis in the area. I would also point out, Deputy Chairman's reminded me how we determine the pricing structure for fuel, and that is taken on an average across certain petrol stations in the area, so that we get a fair price of how things are moving around. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to my Deputy Chairman, Gary Marsh, who's going to introduce our two speakers.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we should do it in the order that, as I did speak to Mr. Humphrey first, but I think as it's Mr. Harding's request for this, he should go first. So,
Fine.
and I have recognised both of the gentlemen as well. So.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much for allowing me to sit here today and just put our case forward to you guys. I appreciate your time given to us. From our point of view, the taxi drivers, they haven't had an increase for over 3 years. The cost of running a taxi now has gone through the roof. The costs for tyres, fuel, everything has gone up. I think one of the reasons last time a lot of the taxi drivers didn't sign and put forward was the system that was being proposed was too complicated and they didn't like it. They just want to keep tariffs 1, 2 and 3 as it is with a fair increase, which is fair to the customers and fair to the drivers. From our point of view, when we put this forward, we was asking for a 40p increase, taking the start-up costs from 320 to 360. A lot of the drivers, including myself, now think that since we put this forward, which was a few months ago, things have moved on yet again. So we can't determine what sort of increase we're going to get. That's down to the councillors and you people here. But we're really asking now if we can have an increase of a start-up fare of £3.80 or £4, if that's possible. Fuel's gone up at least 45%. Inflation, when we put this proposal forward, was 7-8%. That's going to hit 10 or 11% now. So we are really feeling the pinch. And as I say, we just want to keep the tariff system, tariff 1, tariff 2, tariff 3. The customers understand it, taxi drivers like it, and that's how we would like to go forward. I've just questioned, Gary, you said 70 signatures. I dispute that. I think we had around about 100 on that sheet we gave you, 103 or just under 100. So you can see the take on from the taxi drivers this time has been a lot higher to what it was before. I think before we had about 64, 70, I'm not too sure. But they're all wanting to have an increase this time, which is good. And it's not easy getting all the taxi drivers together. They're all got different opinions, different ideas, how much it should be. It's been a nightmare. So all we ask is for a fair increase, which is fair to us and fair to the customers. And I thank you for listening to me.
Okay. Mr. Humphreys, would you like to speak as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, I
Could you press the...
I've not seen... Oh, sorry, push the red. Okay. Yeah, well, when I was invited by Gary after the last meeting I attended in the public gallery, I was furious to listen to the way the councillors decided, really and truthfully, that you didn't want the pay rise that I put forward. I understand that the cab drivers, the hackney drivers, want to keep the same 3 tariffs, and I've got 5 with the tariff we run at station taxis. But John also said at the start of the last meeting that we've been running the tariff that I proposed. I'd been running it for 4 months before the meeting and never had a single complaint. And we complete around about 15,000 jobs a month at station, turning over around about £250,000 a month, and I don't believe the council have had any complaints about our tariff. We certainly haven't had any. We've had a couple of people moan about it because it's gone up and everything. But yeah, it was a bit, to listen to the councillors, I thought that you sort of kicking the can down the road a little bit. It was almost like it was a done deal that you were going to talk about it in 6 months. And there was various councillors who were saying about the after midnight fare, and like I think I said to Gary on the phone, after I phoned Gary after the meeting, that I just wondered with some of the councillors, how much do you think a taxi driver should be earning? If he's sitting out there waiting for you to come home after midnight, how much do you think he should be earning? That's why my drivers at station taxis, of which before COVID we had 72, I've now got 48, and all of my guys, if they were, one of them said to me one day I was having a bit of a bad day, and I said to him, well, come out Friday and Saturday night, we're so busy, and he said to me, why would I work a Friday and a Saturday night for the same rate that I get during the day on a Tuesday? So what I would suggest is, a lot of the taxi drivers who maybe have signed the petition for 3 tariffs probably don't work Friday and Saturday nights, so therefore don't want an increased rate. But if that's, my drivers are more than happy with it, our customers are more than happy with it. As I say, we complete 15,000 jobs a month, we turn over a lot of money, and we don't have any complaints. But as I said before, I just got the impression from some councillors that we were asking for too much. And as I say, how much do you think a cab driver should earn? If he's sitting out there waiting on the off chance that he might get a job after midnight, and bearing in mind every penny a cab driver takes, I would suggest that after tax, fuel, and everything, he's sort of clearing 65–70% of what he actually takes. So if he takes you home for £9, that's not all profit. There's expenses on that. And that bloke sat there, waited for you till after midnight. And I think we've fallen behind again. I mean, I did ask when I put the last one in, I did the work last time in 2018, and on the bottom of my email, I actually addressed the councillors and asked for you to review this every year, and that hasn't happened. That wasn't done. So here we are, we've got the same thing of Andy's done the same thing, gone around the rank, I did the same thing, going around the rank. I think we all want the same result. The guys obviously don't want the tariff that I've introduced, but again, I would suggest that some of those who have signed it possibly don't work Friday and Saturday night. So they have a different agenda. And the reason the MSTA no longer exists is because I've been going for 25 years, and for sometimes not even enough people turn up to get the meeting started. So you can also, there's 154 licenses out there. You're going to get 154 different opinions because everybody wants something different. So what I did when I done our last increase, as I say, that many people voted for, as I say, it's fair. I think we do deserve extra for working late at night, unsociable hours and everything. But as I say, it's down to you guys to choose which tariff you go with. But we definitely have to increase the rates without question.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very cognate and very frankly put. I think we all appreciate when we need a taxi that it can be a difficult time of the day or night or whatever. We very much value when they're around. So thank you for what you just said.
Would like to speak again.
Mr. Harding, would you like to speak again?
Yes, please. Just in response to what Mark was saying, the taxi drivers down at the rank didn't like the 5-tier system. Now, it works for you guys, fine. The other thing I'd just like to point out, a lot of the taxi drivers that have signed this do work the weekends and after midnight. So we're all, I don't personally work after midnight, but a lot of these guys are down there working after midnight. You get a changeover of drivers sort of during the day, and then around about 7–8 o'clock, the other guys come on and they work until 2 o'clock in the morning. So all I would say is that there is a lot of taxi drivers that are working after midnight and weekends. Now, we pick up station customers, and I've got to say what Mark's saying is true. A lot of them haven't even flinched. You see them still running in and out the station, and they're charging the rates they're charging, which is great for them. And if we could get up to those sort of levels, then great. But I don't think the public are going to stomach it. So all I'm asking for, and the guys are asking for down there, is a reasonable increase. And as I said to you before, when we put this forward, it's now moved on another couple of notches with fuel going up and prices going up. So I think we need to be looking at a start-up above 380 if we can get it.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harding. That's once again very cogently argued. I'm going to hand over to my Deputy Chairman, Gary, in order to lead forward with the first remarks, and then I'm going to throw it open to the whole committee to make their comments on what we've got here, and then look towards making a decision on this that will please everybody, hopefully. Gary.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, first of all, I'm going to put my hands up. I was one of the ones who led against the increase because I thought it was too soon after COVID. If I'd known Mr. Putin was going to do what Mr. Putin did, I think I would have got the lottery tickets because I knew that I knew what was coming down the line. But saying that, I agree with the chairman that now's the time to start hearing it. I did have a conversation with Mark, afterwards, after the meeting, because he, as you said, he was spitting blood. I think he had every justification. But he did say, and I think it's within the gift of us, just because we increase it, they don't need to charge that. They can still charge the figures. They can't go above, but they can go below. And that's fact. I've taken on board what Mr. Harding's just said, and in light of his remarks and the fact that every time I seem to go to the petrol station, my bank account gets emptied even more so, I personally would support a 380, even possibly £4. If I could get a seconder as a start-up, I'd be happy to. I've got a seconder. For that to happen, I've got a thirder as well. I think we had a lot of concerns. There was a lot of concerns about people saying, "Oh well, it's too soon," and you know, and the question is, what do we think they're worth? I think they're a public service. They do a public service for us. Obviously, they're earning money for it, but they do a service. And if all the taxi drivers and private hire went off and decided not to work, my God, I think Gary and his team would get a phone call from just about everybody else saying, where the hell's all the taxi drivers gone? Because I don't think we realise, until Mr. Humphrey just said, they do 15,000 movements a month. That's quite astounding. Really, it's 15,000. So I personally think I would round it up to £4 if I could still have a seconder for £3.80, £3.80. But I could go with the £3.80 if the committee succeed. Do we need to have that re-advertised at all, Mr. Vickers?
I think one of the options you've got are to agree with the proposal. The second option would be to consider an alternative increase, which is to the 3. So that's what you're looking at in relation to the start-up tariff. But you also have to consider whether you're going to increase the tariff 2 and tariff 3 start-up points by the same amount. So from £3.20, the first one would be going up to 60 pence. The second one, I think the proposal is to go up, also by 60 pence. Are you saying the same, or are you saying more? So I think it needs to be clear what you're proposing.
Absolutely. So, thank you.
I would say pro rata for the difference. I think people now, they wouldn't have agreed to this in February, but we're now in the height of cost of living crisis. And it's just, everybody's affected by it. I don't care what anybody says, everybody's affected by it. And if you're going to use private hire, taxi, you expect to pay a fair price. If you've gone out and thought nothing of it, spending a couple £100 up in London or whatever, extra £2 or £3 on your fare, I don't think many people are going to be that tied up. In fact, he'll deliver you from there right to your house. So if my secondary is happy with the pro rata prices to go up to the different levels, yeah. You can speak in a minute.
What we'll do is, the committee will clarify exactly what is being proposed. Councillor Marsh has proposed an increase, but I'm very well aware that there are various people that want to speak going forwards. Mr. Humphreys and Mr. Harding, if you don't mind, I will not ask you to speak again at this stage, because the committee have been very patient with us. I would like to give them the chance to make their feelings clear, and then we will clarify the proposal. Yeah? So, Councillor Henwood.
Thank you. I have several questions, okay? First of all, I would wonder how it would work, the increase on when the pump prices increase during a period. So how is that going to work? You're going to take an average. How do we respond to that as a committee, or is that independent? The taxi driver simply says the price is increased, therefore
I understand.
Okay.
Sorry, if I may.
Yes, please.
Respond to that. I believe that the current practice is for the town council to take a regular average through the officers, to the licensing officers, to take an average of the prices in the local area to come up with the actual figure.
And then email out to the drivers.
Do you invite Mr. Bryant to?
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, if I could just clarify that for the chair and for the committee members. The actual price that triggers the increase that's used is currently the price advertised by Elite Garages, which is the garage opposite the entrance to Hayward Heath Railway Station. So that's the pump price, which activates the various surcharges. What we do propose to do in the licensing team is to ensure some clarity for drivers, is to email them confirmation when the price is over the thresholds for A, B and C. We haven't done that previously, but we feel that it would probably be quite good for clarity with them. And of course, it's a charge which is optional for the drivers. The drivers don't have to charge it if they don't wish to, but that's where the pricing comes from.
Thank you. Please come back, Councillor.
Thank you very much. So in fact, it's in your hands to notify the taxi drivers whether they can increase it more. Is that right? It's in the licensing officer's hands.
It's not in our hands, it's the drivers, but what we haven't done previously, because there hasn't been a need, because of fuel costs, is we haven't notified drivers of when it's gone above that limit. Bearing in mind, we've got drivers for East Grinstead and Burgess Hill who may not be aware of what the pricing is at Elite Garages. What we've decided to do after considering the report today is going forward, emailing drivers out to say, we're at such and such a stage, so therefore you can, if you wish, charge the fuel charge at whatever particular rate.
Okay. Was there something else you wanted to say, Councillor?
Yeah, a couple more questions.
Okay. Go on.
The soiling charge, so if a kid is sick in the back of your taxi, which can happen, how does the taxi driver go about getting any money off the customer if the charge is 150? I'm very curious, perhaps practical knowledge from that. It wants to increase from 150 because of cleaning the car. I'm just curious in practical terms how that works. And my third question has to do with the 5 tariff and the 3 tariff. So taxi stations, you charge a 5 tariff, but we're supporting a 3 tariff. Is there a difference in the ownerships or the managements or what? Please, I'm just seeking knowledge.
I'm sure we can clarify that. As I understand it, it costs a heck of a lot more than 40 quid to clean a cab out when it's been and it has to be of a certain standard, don't forget. A taxi has to meet certain standards, and therefore this is considered to be a reasonable increase for somebody that's totally soiled the inside of a car. It might be, anyway. Councillor Bryant, would you like to come back on that one?
Thank you, sir. I won't take the promotion. However, to answer the councillor's questions, yes, the soiling charge, that hasn't changed for, I think, over 12 years. Now, that has to take into account customers who perhaps defecated or urinated or been sick in a driver's vehicle. Costs of professional cleaning are quite expensive, but then you also have to take into account the loss of earnings for that driver because their vehicle's going to be off the road for at least a day, if not longer. Your question as to how they get the money back, well, if the person refuses to pay, then in essence it then becomes a civil debt for them to recover through the civil courts. So it is difficult, however, it makes it, in some respects, a little bit easier for drivers if they want to take that course of action, because it's actually detailed that the amount they're asking for is the amount which is what the council says. Then just to clarify, in respect of the tariff which station taxis have and the tariff for the Hackney vehicles, what you have to remember is that station is a private hire company. And as a private hire company, they are permitted to set whatever fares they want to, and that's not controlled by the council. We can only control, and we only set the fares for Hackney carriages. So that's why you will find that some private hire companies will have different tariffs on meters to the Hackney vehicles. Hopefully that helps explain things.
Thank you very much indeed, John. I'm terribly sorry for calling you Councillor Prime. I think it's much easier if I call you John. Councillor Webb, you wanted to ask some questions.
Chairman, I just wanted to clarify on one point on the Chevron point 4 under item 8, which is the increase in pump prices during periods reach, and it's got the 3 figures down there. Is that relating to petrol or to diesel prices? It needs to be specific.
Is that what, sorry? Petrol.
Does it relate to the petrol prices
Petrol, diesel.
or to diesel prices?
Okay. John, would you like to answer that?
That's a very good point, Councillor. It would relate to the type of fuel which that particular driver was actually using, because you wouldn't expect a driver who is using unleaded to take advantage of the fuel surcharge when it was over that limit for diesel, but not for unleaded. So, as I said, when we contact drivers, we'll obviously say to drivers, for drivers of diesel vehicles, it's over a certain level, and we advise drivers of petrol vehicles when it's over a certain level. As to how we deal with electric vehicles when we get them, that will have to be seen in the future.
Or hydrogen. Thank you very much indeed, John. Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Webb?
No, that's...
You're happy with that? Thank you. Councillor Leban.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got several questions. One, I'm kind of curious that we discussed this last time, and it's been mentioned in the notes here, that the private hire vehicles work on different tariffs. Can I just double check that they are operating on a higher level, more, which is kind of somewhere close to this already? Okay, thank you. All right. Second point is that I personally would feel more comfortable if we had a wider sampling of garages rather than just elite opposite the station. I'd like to see 2 or 3 other petrol stations, or sorry, at least 1 or 2 more stations added to that list, so that there's not, shall we say, the drivers aren't beholden to the pricing at just one particular garage. It would be fairer and give you a better average. Even if you just had the Texaco and the Birch just freeze.
It's historical. We've always used
Yeah, that is the way it's been
sorry,
done, but I would
stop
suggest,
it
if
just
I might
there?
suggest that you discuss that with the licensing officers to see if there's some change can be made on. John, would you like to come back and say something?
I see no reason if Councillor Leban's proposal couldn't be put forward, even if it's a case of 1 petrol station being chosen in East Grinstead, 1 in Haywards Heath, and then 1 in Burgess Hill to reflect the full district, and then the average being taken from those 3 identified petrol stations.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that, because I wouldn't actually want to make a decision based upon the fact that it's always been like that. Our job is to actually make decisions.
That's fair.
Which are fair. Thank you. The last one is on the soiling charge. I'm comfortable with that because simply We're moving to an arena now where we're going to have CCTVs in all the cabs. So in terms of a civil case, that would make it far easier to actually make a judgment if it went that far to court. Last point is the additional charges. And I've got in front of me A, B and C, 20, 40 and 60 pence a litre. Sorry, 190 to 224, 225, 249, over 250. Clearly, they could go higher than that. They could also go back down to 140 or 120. It's all within recent memory. I'd like to actually see something a little bit clearer and perhaps, shall we say, a plus and minus. So, for example, we've got at 190, at 224, we've got 20. At 225 to 249, we've got 40 and 60. If it goes back, for the sake of argument, to 170, I'd like to see that come back to 0. And if it goes back to 150, a fair amount deducted from that fuel surcharge. And if we could see 140, I'm being optimistic, perhaps foolishly, but in order to actually make it fair both ways, I'd like to actually see that applied. And also, if we can, actually make it a little bit clearer. I did take the step of asking for Mr. Bryant to actually clarify how it worked. And whilst I can see that, I don't think it's quite as clear as it could be. And if there's any way that we could actually simplify that, I think it'd be a bonus for the cab drivers and also the customers. And the last point is, yes, I support the 380 on a pro rata basis. And
I think on a simple law of supply and demand, I think if pump prices came drastically down and rates didn't follow suit, I think that they would struggle to get fares in the first place. But perhaps John would like to comment somewhat on that.
Councillors obviously take the point. What I would say about the fuel surcharge is it is only active when the price of fuel breaches the limits which are on the tariff card. When they fall below that, then the drivers are not permitted to charge any surcharge. So there'd be no surcharge on any fares when it's under 190.
Thank you very much indeed, John. Paul, you want to say something?
Yeah, Councillor Levan, could I just clarify, obviously we're trying to look at proposals here, what it is that you're putting forward, and obviously is it seconded as to how the tariffs would work?
Plus 20p.
But there's also the deductions that you're proposing. So I think we're clear that the proposal is for, as set out, but with the figures adjusted. But I think you're also suggesting that the figures should be reduced if petrol prices fall below a certain amount. And if that is the case, could I ask you to clarify what you're proposing? And also, obviously, that would need to be proposed and seconded.
Right, okay, fine, thank you. I've got to accept A, B and C, but if we, which is, right, okay, fine, okay.
Can I maybe suggest that they fall on a pro rata basis?
Pro rata, so
on how they went up.
So at the moment, if it's at 180, there isn't a surcharge. If it's at 170, there isn't a surcharge. I think if it went down to 160, I would actually like to see a 10 pence reduction as a negative surcharge. We're basically supporting the drivers because I want taxi drivers and anyone else that I do business with to actually earn a living and make a profit. Otherwise, none of us have a sustainable future. But if, for the sake of argument, and just to make the point, if fuel went down to £1 a litre tomorrow and stayed there, then much of these, or some of these bases for the increase would fall away completely. And so there would be, effectively, you'd be potentially, I'm using that word very carefully, generating excess profits, which would be neither fair to to the public or necessary for the drivers.
Can I make a suggestion? And it's purely a suggestion. Thank you. What we're looking at here is pro rata increases based on petrol prices. It could well be that we look to introduce pro rata decreases with subsequent reductions in fuel prices. And that might well meet what you're wanting to. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to simplify the way it would work. I think Councillor Clark has got something he'd like to say on that one.
I was just going to say, Chairman, I think this is all too complicated. And if fuel prices do come down radically, I think we probably need another meeting to discuss it.
I think you're absolutely right. Would you be comfortable with that, Councillor? Thank you, Richard.
Indeed, Chairman. I think if we saw, if fuel prices go down to, say, like 140 or 150, then I think it would be appropriate for the committee to meet again to review that part of the
I think as Mr. Clark said, it would require another meeting to address that issue. That's fine, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lee, you've been waiting very patiently, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to seek clarity on the additional charges because I'm fully supportive of an increase in the soiling charge, but it also mentions that there are other charges in relation to congestion, pollution charges and airport drop-off charges. I'd just like clarity on what those charges are.
Okay. John.
Certainly, Councillor. Since the tariff card was first introduced, you'll be aware that places like Gatwick Airport, Heathrow Airport charge for drop-offs and pickups. And also a number of authorities have introduced congestion charging. They've also introduced charges in London to actually enter London, even if you've got a low emission vehicle. Now, with Hackney carriages, they can only charge what's authorised on the tariff card. They can't do additional charges unless it's on the tariff card. So we've taken this opportunity to be able to put on the tariff card that they're able to reclaim charges such as airport drop-off fees, Dartford tunnel fees, and congestion charging fees when they're taking customers to those areas, and they're not at a loss when they're dropping people off, for example, at the airport.
Thank you very much indeed. Did you want to come back on that?
Can I clarify that they could charge the exact charge that they are charged, so they're not making any profit on those actual charges? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened to all of the comments and the concerns raised very carefully, and I think in answer to the drivers, I am surprised at the reduction in the number of drivers who are currently driving for the one company, and I suspect that is a mix of reasons. One being that it is no longer worth their while to drive at the costs that they are able to charge, but I also wonder at the price sensitivity of the people who are using the service and their ability to pay. So in answer to Mr. Humphrey's question about what it is that we want, I think what we want is that sweet spot where the drivers can actually earn a professional living wage, because we are expecting them to become increasingly professional in terms of their knowledge, in terms of their behaviour, the presentation of their vehicle, CCTV, and all the other things that have been mentioned in the report. But also we want to keep their service as affordable as possible. So without going on forever, and oh, by the way, I have counted up the signatures, and I do make them to be 70. So without getting into an argument about how many there are, I think that is a sizable number of drivers who have signed this petition. and I agree with Mr. Clark, keep it as simple as possible. And I agree with the 3 tariff stages. And I do have some sympathy for that initial charge to be increased for the tariff 3, because if you are sitting around waiting until 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, you do deserve to earn a decent amount there. I also would be happy to forth the £3.80 start-up, and I also take on board the point that has been made about having an annual review.
Yes.
I think we would have avoided a lot of problems if we did actually stick to that annual review, because as has been pointed out, inflation was projected at 7%, and it'll probably hit 10 or 11% this year, quite feasibly. And I think that's all that I want to say for now. Thank you, Chairman.
Very cogent, and I think very well informed. Yes, we need to get ahead of this, don't we, in my opinion, because prices are running ahead, and we want people not to be in a position where they feel it's not worth working. But at the same time, we want to make sure that people are capable, are able to You wanted to come back, Councillor Webster?
I did, thank you, Chairman. I also want to just say I support Councillor Levan's suggestion of a service station in each of the 3 towns being identified. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to the Deputy Chairman, I would like Councillor Cornish. You've been waiting very patiently. I noticed you'd got your thing up earlier on. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to clarify, if we are going for the proposal of £3.80, that works out to about 18.7%. Is that rate increase to 18.7% going to be applied to tariff 2 and tariff 3, or is that just tariff 1?
Good question. John?
The way that the tariffs work is that tariff 2 is 1.5 tariff 1, and tariff 3 is 2 times tariff 1. So if you got 380 on tariff 1, you would have 560 as the start on tariff 2, and you would have 760 as the start on tariff 3.
Is that clever? Okay, carry on.
Can I come back? Sorry.
Of course.
It's just, I was listening really with intent about the value on the drivers, and because I think we all in the room rate them very highly in the service that they do, I just, in the fare comparison, because it's 12.5% for each tariff, I'm just wondering why we can't replicate that. If we're saying it's going up to 18.7% on tariff 1, surely the value of the driver doesn't decrease on Christmas night at midnight back down to a lower percentage. I would just be in favour of, if we're going to increase tariff 1 metre start by 18%, that we replicate that on tariff 2 and tariff 3.
That's a fair comment. I see 1 or 2 nodded heads. Can I? John, sorry, Paul, sorry.
I suspect, but I could be corrected, that if the mathematics are done the same way, if it's 1.5 times, it's still going to be 18.7% increase, whatever. So whatever, because they're based on tariff 1. I'm sure if I'm wrong on that, somebody will speak up.
It sounds reasonable, that does. John, you wanted to come back anyway.
No, it was just to confirm what Mr. Vickers has said, that the increase would be exactly the same for the 3 tariffs.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Some good questions. I think that the general consensus, I'm very, very pleased with the committee, the general consensus is to support the taxi drivers and to come to some fair conclusion. I'm going to go back to Deputy Chairman Gary Marsh, who's going to try and pull together exactly what we're proposing. I think what we're saying is, that on the first point, we are agreeing that there needs to be an increase. Now we need to actually nail this down as to what those increases are going to be, and I'm hoping that my Deputy Chairman, Gary Marsh, has got that fervently nailed down. I'm sure our legal officers and I'm sure John will help us to make sure we get that right, and then we will go to the vote.
Nothing might put on the spot. So it'll be 20p goes on to the first one, then it'll be pro rata, as John just pointed out. It'll be times 1.5 times 2 across the three tariffs. I further would like to propose, which I think we heard from Mr. Humphrey and Councillor Webster, we wouldn't have got ourselves in this position if we had actually listened to our own self by doing this on an annual basis.
Absolutely.
And I do think that, I'm not going to say annual from today's date, I think it should be annual from the start of unless it's going to prove administratively difficult, from the next ministerial year in May next year, and then then year after, from May 2023, then 24, 25, 26, if that is possible, or do we have to do it from 12 months from today? I was just thinking, if it's done at the beginning of our so-called financial year that we as a council adopt, would that be acceptable? Because then that could really then help in the years, well, it'd be less than a year's time, it'd be 10 months' time, wouldn't it? That if the price of fuel's gone down, we could revisit it again and say, look, you know, come on, boys, we're going to have to start taking some money back because you're charging way too much and you could price yourself out of the market. So I think that if we did it what we should have done every year, we could keep a handle on it and we won't allow inflation to wipe us out on it.
Is everybody happy with that? I'm seeing nods around the room. Councillor Ban, you want to come back?
Thank you. I'd suggest a more neutral month, perhaps September. And the reason for that is that councils tend to have elections always in May and other politics. And I wouldn't want to mix politics at any level or any party with licensing. So,
Can I come back?
Of course you can.
The only reason I would say is it's a time, because otherwise if you say September, we're only talking a couple of months' time. You know,
we're not talking now, we're talking September.
We're talking this September, and if you leave it to next September, you're talking 15 months away. So if we said, all right, if we said the week starting the first of January, then, you know, the beginning of the year. Tom, Paul?
Mr. Clark.
I think this year we're having this meeting in June for a rise in September. So I think if we follow that pattern,
June.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Because you can't have the meeting and have the rise immediately afterwards.
Okay.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
So that was my proposal.
Councillor Marsh, have you got the pricing down?
My proposal...
Because we need to nail this down with the officers so that we can vote on it.
My proposal is, and it could be agreed with yourself, is that we increase the tariff one from 360 to 380. 320. Is it 320 to 380, so 60p more, and it's pro rata thereafter on the three tariffs. And I propose also that we sit again June next year, those who are standing and who are here again, to set this again. We can't allow this to ever happen again, to do that. And are you happy to second that, Councillor Ban?
Is everybody comfortable with what we're talking about? Does anybody want to come back on any part of that? Councillor Mrs. Lee.
Can I just check? I mean, I might be wrong in my maths, but I think 1.5 times of the on tariff 2 would make it 570, I think.
Yes.
Is that right?
It's
okay, right.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
We need to get this clear, don't we? I think that, Paul, you wanted to come back.
Thank you. I just, the only point I have is if the decision is to take a petrol station pump price from Haywood Heath, Burgess Hill and
East Grinstead.
East Grinstead, thank you. I think you need to define which ones you are taking. And are you taking that and adding them together and dividing by 3 to get that average price? How are you?
Okay. Councillor Marsh.
I would suggest that we use the Esso garage outside the railway station, and the nearest garage, I think, in Burgess Hill is the BP garage. BP comes nearer to the station than the Shell. So the BP garage on the London Road in Burgess Hill. Forgive me for the name of the road in East Grinstead, but it's the Esso garage by the station. Station Road, and the Elite garage down in opposite the railway station here. Those are the 3 we're nailed down.
John, are you comfortable with all that? If we got it all sorted.
Yeah, yes, certainly, Chair, councillors, that's fine. Whichever ones you choose are the ones that we use.
Bless you. Is everybody comfortable with what the proposal is? We all fully understand it. We're all fully in support of it. Okay, we're going to go to, sorry, Councillor Webster, I'm terribly sorry. I need to get used to seeing these.
No problem, Chairman. What I wanted to just see clarity on was the additional points, for example, the valet service, because just during the course of the meeting, I've looked up online and it's £110 for a valet of an interior of a vehicle, and that excludes the loss of earnings. So I do think £150, although it seems to be a very large increase, it is a fair price,
a reasonable increase
to charge
for the lost earnings as well.
Thank you.
Is everybody comfortable with that element of what we're proposing? That's great. I think we're kind of there. Paul.
So just to clarify, I think the original, the proposal that is before the committee is also, Mr. Chairman, includes the part of it. Currently, it stands for the next 140 metres, 153 yards, or part thereof. It's 20 pence, and I think the proposal in the in Appendix 4 is to take that to 130 metres before the. I don't know if that's still to be proposed, and obviously if that's the case,
I understand
just want to be clear.
I understand that part of the original proposal stays with that.
Nobody mentioned it.
No, so we're staying with that one. Now, I see nobody else wanting to speak. Has anybody? We need to get this really nailed down because we want to make sure that it's right. Councillor Leban, you wanted to say something? You killed yourself. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, do we need to actually build in a provision that if fuel prices drop beneath £1.50, the committee will be called to meet again?
Yeah, I think what we've agreed is that this will be discussed to keep an eye on this going forward annually.
Discuss it with the portfolio holder.
And it will remain, of course, with Councillor Webster. Okay, so we're perfectly clear on this. I think we're ready to vote. Are our officers ready to take this vote? I want to be absolutely clear on this because we want to support these guys and we want to do it fairly. Okay, so if you could use the yes/no buttons. As far as I can see, that's a unanimous yes. Thank you so much for your attendance and for your engagement.
Go to number 6.
We've got a number 6.
We haven't got it.
Sorry, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, do notice of which has been given.
We have none.
And we have none. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Marsh. And thank you very much for your attendance. I therefore close the meeting at exactly 1800.
Just thank Mr. Humphrey and Mr. Hardy for the